Welcome to the She Suite Society. We're hitting the ground running with our first interview being with Law Baker, founder of LBB Edutainment. Tune in to understand how she came to be one of the most magical people that embodies togetherness and transforming conversations and ways of thinking. She is bold. She is one of a kind. Getting to know her and talking with her takes two parts because she is the real deal. Here is part 2. So, I know you do this work day in, day out. I've seen you. When I know this work doesn't ever stop, okay?
Mm-mm.
But it's exhausting.
Girl.
There are moments it'll kick your ass.
Ooh, child.
So how? Aside from the fact that you have an endless supply of energy, and we've talked about, we're young at mind, body won't always be that way.
No.
But how do you pick yourself up every day and every day, knowing that, yes, we know the work is needed. We know the work at the end of the day is it fills your heart bucket, but you have to fill yours too. And how do you do that? How do you do that?
Yeah. First and foremost, I have the most amazing community of supporters that I could ever even speak to you about. First and foremost comes within my household. My husband, who is my partner, we've been together for 16 years. And this dude, I always call him, I say, you the truth, man. You are the truth. Because he is amazing where he sees all of the amazing things that I can do and champions me on with them. And he sees all the frailties that I have and loves me through them. And those are the things that are super important. You know, my kids, I love them so much. And they often talk to me and ask me questions about being a business owner and being an entrepreneur. And how do you navigate this? How do you navigate that? And so I'm always honestly having these conversations with them. Both of my kids are business owners, even a young and 23 and 27 years old. They're business owners. When I was a kid, I didn't even know that was possible to be an entrepreneur. Are you kidding? I mean, my grandma worked incessantly. My mom worked incessantly. So I didn't even think owning my own business was a thing. And I've been able to do it for 3 years, like on my own, not having a quote unquote backup, fallback, whatever. And I'm like, oh, I'm doing this. And I'm learning a lot about myself, not so good stuff, but good stuff too. Listen, honey, when you own a business, you want to talk about all of your stuff is in the real public, honey. That part. What I know I'm not good at, what I know I'm really good at, both of those. You know, but that's the biggest strength is my husband and my kids take good care of me. And over the years, I have collected some of the best friends, collaborators, partners, colleagues that you could ever imagine. And I include you in that number, by the way. And it's just like, I learn from everybody. I have a mindset, they talk about growth mindset or fixed mindset. I have a growth mindset. Mm-hmm. I believe anybody you meet at any time in your life can teach you something if you're willing to learn. Yeah. And I am a lifelong learner. I won't pretend like I know a whole lot about anything. I always say I'm a Jill of all trades and a master of none.
That's why you have all these accolades.
And listen, if something's interesting to me, I go after it just to learn more, just to have my mind wide and full of variety. But that's the thing. I learn from so many people, even literally strangers that I meet for 5 minutes, 10 minutes, 30 minutes at a conference, whatever. And I collect those experiences.
Where's
and
that
is what
place to go then to learn?
Gosh, girl, everywhere. Literally, it's so funny because like this week I was meeting a friend at Parable Coffee down in downtown. Parable's great. And I met this unhoused gentleman who had been here for 2 months, had come down for a job, but the person ghosted him and did not have the job for him. And he was just trying to figure out his way, not knowing anybody, not being familiar with Columbus. And so we literally had an 8-minute conversation, like literally not long at all, 8-minute conversation. And it just he tore at my heart because he didn't have family here. He didn't know anybody here. Even he was estranged from his family. He's from New Jersey, but he talked about just trying to figure out what is the next step for his life. And it was literally day to day. It was day to day because he was living in a shelter. It was day to day. He didn't know one day for the next what was going to happen in his life. And I first of all, I stood back and I said, what a privilege I have. Number one, I have a house. I have work. I have a family. I have all these things that quote unquote protect me, ground me. And this gentleman didn't. So I don't ever want to lose my privilege, even when I've gone through oppression in this country and I've gone through different things as being a Black woman. I still have a lot of privilege and I'm not going to pretend like I don't. And so I think that's part of it too, is acknowledging where you do have privilege.
Yeah.
And then when you do have it, it's not to feel guilty about it. It's not to feel shame about it. It's like, I have this. Now, how do I use this to help others? And that's what keeps me grounded. That's what keeps me grounded. It's like, if I have a certain level of privilege, whether it's me being able to converse and talk to people, network with people, connect with people, that's great. How do I use that for the benefit of society, the collective of society, and not just my individualistic self?
That is my favorite so much, because I talk also to a lot of people, you know this, and I've talked a lot about starting this podcast and about other people starting their own podcasts, and they're all into, I want to interview the CEOs and the tops of the tops and have the conversations with those people. And I was like, I don't. Yes, I want to have people that have whatever in life, but I'd rather have an honest conversation with another woman. I will say, I am only after women on this podcast.
I'm mad because we got a lot to say, baby, and we haven't been able to say it.
Enough.
Listen, girl, preach.
Go sit in the corner somewhere. This is all about us ladies in the room. And anybody that identifies as a woman, they're all welcome in this space. Everyone else can kick rocks at this moment. And I say that having a son.
Right. I know. Listen.
We need the allies. But my point was the fact that the story that comes to mind isn't of a person that can give you something. You know what I mean? How many conversations do you have with people where they're not even really looking at you? They're just looking at you to see what you can give to them.
What can you contribute?
That's it at the end of the day. You just said a story of just my favorite. Someone you're talking to that is having another human experience, which you did end up taking away gratitude. And they, 100%. I'm sure, left feeling seen and heard, because the unhoused community tends to be overlooked, be passed by, ignored, almost as if they just fade into the scenery. It is really something. And even then, when you sit down and talk with them, which you did, you will find that they have a lot of gratitude for even smaller things that I hate to say smaller things, but even the things that most people have, right?
Right.
They don't take it for granted usually.
That's right. And that's the human connection. What you're talking about is 100% is that, because the way he conveyed it to me is that people really look at him as being human because he's poor and unhoused, right?
Yeah.
But we, even as a society, and as much as I love Columbus, I also fault Columbus because they have criminalized poverty.
Oh yeah. But there's a few states that have.
There's a lot of people who have. And I'm like, literally, honey, let's think about it. We're all 1 to 2 paychecks away from that, our damn selves. If we get behind 1 paycheck, 2 paychecks, the catch-up process, it's really freaking hard. It's really hard. And so if you think of yourself as being the same as somebody and just you, again, a privilege, it changes the dynamic when you don't think you're better than somebody. Because I tell my kids all the time, I said, you're not better than anybody and you're just as good as everybody. Both. You're both. You're just as good as anybody else and you're no better than anybody else. So don't come out thinking that you are, hey, that person's poor. That poor. No, I don't care. Human being, blood in their veins, and their poop stinks. That's how I talk about humans. Is blood in their veins? Yep. Does their poop stink? Yeah. Then you're the same. Keep it moving.
And
I don't care how much money you have.
So that's exactly where I was going next. I am so sick of celebrity culture. It's insane. I can't stand it. I don't understand why people worship other people. Like, sincerely, why are you worshiping at all? A person. What is this? Why? Because they have money? Really, is it about money, do you suppose? Or
It's about
or is it a
access,
status?
right?
Like everybody knows your name.
It's access, right? And that's what I talk about all the time. And this is I love that you brought this up, because this is something that is like one of my favorite conversations. Their money it's something that people think they need a lot of money. They want what money can do for them,
Ah,
right? So when you are at that upper echelon or whatever, that all the money, people want to give you things and free things because they want favors. They want the access to power that you seem to have by being a person with a lot of means. And I've tried in a lot of ways to dispel that, because the funny part, and I'm gonna say it out loud on your podcast, I'm not a person with a lot of means. I am doing very well for myself, but I'm not with a lot of means. But I put myself in situations that I talk to those people who are the 7-figure earners, the 8-figure earners, because I'm like, again, you and me, we're the same. We're the same. You had an opportunity or an access to an opportunity that I didn't have. So you are where you are. Doesn't mean you're smarter than me. Doesn't mean you're more hardworking than me. Doesn't mean you're more determined than me. It means you had this opportunity that I did not have. And so that's the only thing that's separating us. So I don't see you as better than me. So I'm going to come up and I'm going to talk to you person to person, heart to heart, human to human, to say, I see you doing these things and I'm excited for you that you're doing these things. But how are you doing these things to make the world better and not just yourself? And I have zero problem asking a person that, because I ask myself that every day. P.S.
yep. Oh, yeah.
You know, with myself, I ask myself every day. One of the things that I am so grateful that we do as a family is every holiday we do Meals on Wheels. Before we do any dinners, any celebrations, we do Meals on Wheels because, number one, we always want to have a sense of gratitude for what we have, but also a heart to see that other people don't have it. And let's not think of ourselves more highly than we do.
Right.
And it has been incredible. You know, like my youngest, I said 23 years old. We've been doing Meals on Wheels since they were 3-4 years old. So 20 years of doing this to say, stay humble.
Yeah.
Be grateful, stay humble. And I think if we push more of that, child, this world will be a much different place. Even much different place.
I think, I mean, there's some polarizing things happening right now. And I am also, I'm a risk taker. I have always lived that way. I live on the edge and I say the things that most people don't want said out loud. I just say it. When I know you the same. So I'm going to say it. Capitalism. And the thought of capitalism is crumbling in the sense that one man can take out one CEO of a major, randomly for-profit, shouldn't be, type of company. And that one act united the entire nation. If that didn't scream volumes to the fact that I think we are headed that way, that a lot of people are starting to see that, we shouldn't be dealing with everybody trying to get more and more coin. It should be more about the basics and fundamentals of humanity. We have a right to have access, to have a housing, to have food, to have water, to have health care. We have a basic fundamental human right to those things. And because of greedy ass motherfuckers, we don't have that. And because of people that idolize those heifers, we don't have that.
That's right.
I think we're shifting. Do you think the same? Do you see the same? Because now that the government's gotten involved, also why? And now you see where all the money's been going, and this is probably going to get banned for so many reasons. I'll cut this out if I need to. But
okay, keep it.
But now that the government's getting involved and they're trying to criminalize certain things, like you can't even say the dude's name without the FBI calling crap like that happening.
Right.
Do you really think that we're shifting? Do you really think that everybody's going to stay the course? Or do you think we're going to end up going back to the same old, same old?
You know what's so funny about that? And I love this question so much. I think about it in generations. I don't even think about it in socioeconomics. I think about it in generations. You know, my kids are that Gen X, right? And I look at the Gen X, I'm sorry, Gen Z.
Gen
I'm
Z.
Gen X. Gen Z and the alphas, which in 2025, the betas are now a thing. So people born in 2025 start the beta generation. The Gen Zs and the alphas are not having the foolishness that we have dealt with all of our lives, right? And no, not the boomers, because my family, my parents and in-laws are boomers, but they just dealt with shit. Like they thought it in the early days when they were in 20s, and after they get older, they're like, yeah, let's just kind of do the thing. Yeah, just kind of let's ease out of here. And again, these 20-somethings are like, no, we're not doing that. But if you look at the history of movements, especially of civic and social justice movements, it's always been done by 20 and 30-year-olds. It's always been. I mean, Martin Luther King Jr. died before he was 40.
Damn.
He was assassinated at 39. Let's just talk about it. I mean, let's really talk about it. So the majority of his work was in his 20s and 30s. And so we talk about this younger generation in a lot of times kind of haphazardly and like with a little bit of sass, but it's always been young people who have made the difference. It's always been. So why are we not empowering them and trying to shut them down like, oh, Gen Z and their trauma, bragging, and they're this and that. No, they're not dealing with the same shit we dealt with. We were told to be quiet, keep your head down, and just do your work, right?
Yep.
And it didn't matter how much trauma was inside us and how it manifested. We were told to be quiet. And so now you have this entire generation of people with the Gen Zs, and now especially with the alphas that grew up on technology. So they know literally how to swipe right from birth, right? Let's talk about it.
Yeah.
But then they also saying like, this doesn't feel good to me, so I don't want to do it.
Yep.
And I'm kind of okay with that.
I'm very okay with that.
And saying, good for you.
Yep.
Because there's a lot of shit that I went through as a young 20 and 30 something in the corporate spaces, especially. Let's talk about sexual harassment, improper behavior, all these things. And the HR team said, you need to sit down and shut up because this person is more powerful than you.
Yeah. And do you know how messed up that is?
Girl, it's so messed up. But that's why you're seeing a calling to the carpet of all of this bad behavior that has been going unchecked for so long. And people are like, we're not dealing with that. And so I do think it's changing. I 100% think it's changing because this next generation are like, you're not going to silence us. You're not going to put us in a corner. You're not going to have me have 30 years of unresolved trauma in my body because it makes you uncomfortable.
Yep.
Fuck you. And I'm sorry, but that's where they're at. And I'm like, yes, I am here for all of it.
Yeah.
I'm here for all of it.
Oh, yeah. I forget. I thought it was in Indiana, the one class where it started with a 10-year-old who was protesting because they were trying to ban some of the LGBTQ plus books out of their school. They straight up walked out. I applauded that. I was like, thank God we have a generation, quite a few of them that are willing to protest. This is where I've always been on the edge with my generation. I'm old millennial, young Gen X. So I know there's somewhere in the middle, right?
Yes.
However, I identify almost 1,000,000% with the alphas, which I birthed. I'm like, I got alphas coming here. But I've been protesting since I knew about protesting. I'm on the streets with everybody.
Absolutely.
And I did tell a quick story. When Roe v. Wade got knocked down, I went to the streets to protest with my daughter, with my niece and her friends. And I wore the same shirt that I wore when I was in college to protest. And my sign said, it's a shame I'm still having to be out here. And it's actually worse now. It's worse now than when I was. I'm ashamed. I am ashamed of where we are as a country when it comes to women's rights. And it is my main motivation to not have girls have to deal with this crap. I can't believe we are here now.
Girl,
I can't believe we are here now. And I talked yesterday on my channel about Sojourner Truth and her speech, Ain't I a Woman, and what she was calling to the table. And what hit me when I was rereading it, it was written, and it wasn't written, but she said it in 1851.
Yeah.
1850 motherfucking one.
Yep.
It is 2025, and we
Yep.
still have to have this conversation.
We
How
still
can
have
this
to have
nation
it.
say that we're getting any better?
It's so funny that you say that, because it's so hard. It's like it visually, you know that we're different because we're
Yeah.
quote unquote not in physical chains anymore. But the mental chains, girl, they're
The
still on
digital
us.
chains.
The
You have
digital
digital.
chains
Yeah.
are still on us. And I think that's what people are like, oh, well, things are better in a way, but not really in another way. Right. And so let's deconstruct all of that. And people don't want to do it. Again, it's back to, oh, you're making me feel uncomfortable. I don't like having this conversation. I'm like, boob, I was born uncomfortable. I
So
look in the mirror every day.
maybe that's it.
I mean, that's the real thing.
Maybe that's it, because I also was raised as the odd person out. Like, I grew up in a pretty wealthy area, but everybody was white, and I'm just sitting here being me.
Right. Right.
And I recognize I'm different. And
Right.
it just kind of, when you grow up always being on the outside of things, it makes it so that you never really knew what it was like to be in the inside. The difference, though, I think between that is that I never really wanted to be on the inside. I don't care what they think on the inside. I'm quite comfortable where I'm at.
Right. And I think that's the thing. You know, there's a lot of us, quote unquote, outsiders, you know, who are like the asterisk. I always say I'm an asterisk. It's like everybody asterisk. Everybody about everybody. My person.
Yeah.
But I've been very comfortable being the square peg in the round hole. I've been that person saying, hey, I don't fit there, dude. So we need to create another hole for me. Yeah. But not everybody's like that. There's people who, quote unquote, like to kind of disappear into the woodwork. They're like, oh, I don't want to be unassuming. I just want to kind of be over here and it's fine. And I think that's okay for those people, but it has to be a choice. You have to be able to opt in or opt out by your own volition. You have to be able to do that. Not that somebody is doing that on your behalf. You have to say, I don't want to be a part of that because that just doesn't make me feel great, or I don't get my jollies from that. I don't feel positive from that. So I'm going to choose not to do that. Not I was excluded from that.
Right.
And
but I want to add a layer.
Mm-hmm.
I don't believe that you should sit out just because you're afraid.
100%. And I do everything scared. I think everything. I do everything scared. Because here's the thing. When you are a person of color, when you are a woman, there is an inherent risk to everything that you do. Mm-hmm. Because you are going against what is traditional, what is the norm, what is all these things. So inherently, your existence is offensive.
Wow. Yeah, no, you're right. I know that was a mic drop. Why we have mics? That's a mic drop moment right there. Right it's there. Real. Your existence is offensive because you are, in essence, non-human. It's not even a second-class citizen.
No.
You're not even human.
And you don't matter and all these other things. And so the fact that you just show up every day is resistance. Yeah. And so that's why I show up every day. Yeah. Because I'm like, you need to see something different than your norm. Mm-hmm. I break every mold, boo-boo. I already know. I'm not even pretending like I am not one of a kind. I am one of a kind. I'm quirky as hell. Sometimes I act like I don't have good sense. I'm funny. I take a lot of risks, like you talked about. There's a lot of things about me that are just, honey, against the grain. And I welcome it. And when I see other people doing it, I'm like, yes, do more of that.
I love it.
We need more of that.
We do need more of that. Mm-hmm. So as we are wrapping up on our time, yes, we'll go with that. What are some final words you want people to either know about you or about anything we've talked about or anything we missed?
Yeah. Less about me, but more about themselves. I want them to question themselves. Like, what do you truly believe is your purpose here on this earth, right? And it could be contentious for some. It could be what you call simple, or it can be complex. I want you to figure it out for yourself. What is it that drives you? What gives you strength, power, positivity, all of those things? because those things are super important in the whole spectrum of the world and how the world runs.
Yeah.
So I don't ever want you, whoever you are listening, to feel like you're a less than. Like I tell my kids, you're just as good as everybody else and you're no better than anybody else. So make sure your voice is heard. Make sure you stand firm. You draw a line in the sand and say, this is my boundary, my barrier. This is what I'm doing. Like it or don't like it, this is who I am. Because the reality situation is you're going to have people that absolutely love who you are and people who absolutely hate who you are. Don't sway to either side. Be yourself.
I love it. Be
Period.
yourself. You've been listening to the She Suite Society. Remember, your seat at the table is waiting. Join us next time.